This is Onda's oBook 11 Pro. It's a Core M3 7Y30 powered tablet. Now it's a 2-in-1 because you can remove and separate the keyboard, which is sold separately here. It's got wireless AC on there, a 64GB eMMC 5-spec drive for internal storage, which doesn't sound wonderful, but it is at least faster than the previous generation 4.5 ones. There is, however, an SSD slot inside the tablet, but it involves removing the whole rear, and then you can upgrade the storage, increase the performance there. One of the positives of the oBook 11 Pro here is that we've got a lot of ports on it. So we've got a Type-C port. Now that's only charging and data. That is it. It can power an external hard drive, but it does not support video out. Another thing to note is that my Type-C chargers don't seem to want to work with it, some of them. But it does work, of course, with the one that's included in box, which is 12 volts and 3 amps there. We get a full-sized USB 3 port, which is great, something that the Cube Mix Plus and the i7 Book do not have, micro SD card slot, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. So the rear of it is made out of an alloy, so it's a unibody build I got on it. It's quite firm, it's solid. The build quality overall is quite decent. Now you see at the top here this different colored strip. That is, of course, for the wireless AC and Bluetooth antenna to help improve the reception. So the tablet can be spun around and docked in the keyboard, and used in what they call presentation mode. However, there's one serious flaw with this, and that is that the lower quality keyboard, which I'll get onto in just a second, won't actually support the weight of the tablet at certain angles. So if it's anything under about there, the tablet will start to collapse and fall down completely. So that's a design fail there. The keyboard's also quite heavy. It has a counterweight in it for a very good reason to stop it from tipping over, but this is the maximum angle that you can get the screen to recline, and pressing down, it will be very easy to tip over. And I found that the keyboard cannot really be used on your lap, because if you use it on your lap, there's just so much risk of it tipping over and it could drop and fall off your lap. So you're going to have to push the screen up a lot more vertical there, which means your viewing angles are not so great. And then there's a second flaw with the keyboard, and that is that while it does have two USB 2 ports either side, these ports lack sufficient power output, so they will not power external hard drives. You have to resort to using the USB 3 port that's on the tablet itself. The keyboard to type on isn't too bad, at least this is good. So typing experience I'd rate as good, fine. There is no shortcut for the screen brightness. There is at least a key to disable the touchpad. Now the touchpad, it's hit and miss really. I don't like the texture of it. The plastic they've used to me feels just a little bit too textured, and I wish it was a little smoother, but it does the job. Now I don't particularly like the scrolling on it. Of course, it does support Windows 10 gestures, but it's not a precision touchpad, so we cannot disable or control those gestures. And there are certain bits of the keyboard that just feel a little bit cheap and tacky around the hinge part here. This plastic isn't really super high quality. So the combination of both the keyboard and the tablet come in at a hefty 1.75 kilos. So it's pushing up towards the 2 kilo mark, which makes this rather heavy and not as portable as I would like. The tablet by itself weighs 868 grams. So there's no webcam on the rear, but the front-facing webcam can shoot 720p video at 30 frames per second, and I find the quality to be okay. It's definitely a lot better than the Apollo Lake tablets. The screen's a 1080p IPS panel. It has vibrant colors. The white balance of it is definitely leaning towards a cool white. You do see quite a bit of a blue tint in the display. And the touch accuracy of the digitizer isn't bad. It's quite responsive to touch. It's accurate. It's quick. I have no complaints with the feel of touch on the screen here. The screen is not fully laminated, so there is an obvious gap between the glass and then the IPS panel below. And because it's not fully laminated, and it does come with a pre-installed screen protector on there, it does not have scratch-resistant glass. Reflections can be an issue, and I definitely would not want to be using this outside. The maximum brightness comes out at 300 lux, which is adequate. It's fine for indoor use. And the screen also dims down very dim, making it ideal for late nighttime use. So it is running Windows 10 Home Single Language. It's got English on there. It activates without a problem. And if I show you the device manager here now, you'll see that our wireless is the Intel Wireless AC7265 chipset, which is not a bad chipset at all, with good range and performance. I'll show you that in a minute. The internal SSD that I have installed here is a SanDisk. I put my own one in there just so I've got more space to show you these games and benchmarks in this video here. But the drive that it comes with, the 64GB one, is a Toshiba 064G38. And these are the speeds of it here. So that is not bad at all for an eMMC 5 drive. 4Ks are decent. The sequential writes are a little low there, but the reads definitely do not slow the system down and hinder performance at all. To me, it feels quite quick and snappy getting in around the OS using Chrome and Edge. Now here's the PC Mark score for those interested. 2190, which is a little bit lower than some other Core M3 7Y30 tablets. The reason why these benchmarks are a little bit slower is because the RAM is only running at 1600 megahertz and not 1866. So we are losing a bit of speed there when it comes to our RAM performance, which in turn affects the Geekbench 4 score here, which is again a little bit lower than the likes of the Cube Mix Plus that I reviewed with the same chipset. So the wireless performance, very good. No complaints whatsoever. The range on it seems very decent, and this chipset is better than the Intel Wireless AC3165 we have in the Cube Mix Plus. Scrolling performance in Edge is really good. You see a couple of little stutters there. Sometimes it's not perfect, but more noticeable when you're in Chrome that the scrolling just isn't as smooth. Now, Edge has no problem streaming and playing 4K video. I've tested this numerous times, but it is slow on Chrome. It lags a little bit, it drops frames. One area of disappointment, like most of the Core M, in fact, I think all of the Core M tech that I've looked out of China, that we have disappointing battery times on here. So you're only going to get around 5 to 5.5 hours. Now, right now, I've been in Chrome, I've done a bit of benchmarking and things like that, and it's got a reported full runtime of 5 hours and 23 minutes. Now, I have used it right down to 10%, and it's more or less accurate here. Charge times to fully charge it is 3 hours and 36 minutes. So thermals, it gets up to 93 degrees. This is after 24 hours of use that involved gaming and also charging it and gaming at the same time, benchmarking, pushing it as hard as I could. So really not ideal, but it does not trigger at least any thermal throttling, so it's not affecting the performance. Now it does have a copper heatsink in there, and the rear of it will heat up and does get quite warm to the touch, up to 39 degrees just behind the area actually where I have these temperature results here. On the rear of it, the metal does heat up a lot. Now, overall performance of the oBook 11 Pro is good. It feels almost like a Core i5 device. You can do some 1080p video editing on it. You can do Photoshop editing. Things like that are fine, but I would not be editing 4K video, and I would not try to play really demanding games because you will be disappointed with the performance. It still is, after all, you have to remember that it's a fanless tablet chipset that it has in there. The tablet has two speakers left and right. They're on the side, so they're outwards firing, and they're not particularly good quality. I mean, they've got a little bit of volume to them, but often, depends on the content, you will find the speakers lacking in volume, and I do really wish they were a little bit louder, but let's have a listen to them. So as you can hear from that, they really do need to be a lot louder than what they are. So it's a shame they're quiet. They have a hint of bass in them, which is at least one positive. So looking at gaming performance now, this is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. 720p, lowest settings. And yeah, I'm not very good at this, but at least I managed to get just one kill then. See if I can get this guy. And got lucky there. And did. But yes, it is playable and the performance is reasonable. I'm a hopeless aim. Okay, he walked into that one. And did again. So let's have a look at League of Legends. And as you probably guessed, yeah, League of Legends, 1080p, lower settings. It's running around 70 frames per second, so it doesn't have a problem with this game at all. Very playable. It's still not the fastest performance I have seen out of the Core M3 7Y30, and that is of course due to those lower RAM speeds as I mentioned earlier. So this is Dirt 3, 1080p again on the ultra low settings, so you can see it's getting around 50 frames per second, which is good. And this game is very smooth and playable, so no problems with a title like this. You could increase the effects, so the details, but your frame rate will drop about 10 to 15 frames per second on average, so I would keep it on ultra low. So that is it for the Onda oBook 11 Pro. In my time using it, I do like how fast and smooth it feels. The performance of the Core M3 7Y30 is great. However, it's not the fastest I have tested because of those lower RAM speeds. We're losing out on about 10%, 15% performance against other tablet models like, for example, the Cube Mix Plus or the i7 Book. Now, the build quality of the tablet is great. It's got the full-size USB 3 port on there that powers external hard drives. That is a bonus there. Wireless speeds are excellent, good range, really good speeds. Very happy with that. Now, we've got that M.2 SSD slot in there, but we have to pull the whole rear off to access that. Have a look at my unboxing video if you want to find out how to do that. It's a bit of a hassle to put that in to expand on the limited 64 gigabytes of storage we have. Now, the main letdown I feel of this tablet isn't the screen. The screen's okay, but it's got a bit of a cool white calibration to it, but the keyboard. Now, the typing experience on the keyboard is fine, but it's very easy to have the whole thing tip over if you use it in your lap. The build quality also is quite plasticky and doesn't have the same feel as the tablet itself does. The USB ports on there, USB 2 ports, cannot power external hard drives, which is another con that's disappointing for me. I feel they should at least be able to power an external hard drive, which makes them practical. Here, they're not as practical, of course. And the combined weight of 1.755 kilos means it's a little heavier than other options out there. So if you are in the market for a tablet that doesn't support, well, it does support a stylus, but not a Wacom stylus, and you don't need a stylus really, then maybe this is one to go for, but bear in mind those cons there, that it's going to be a little bit heavy, and you can't really use it at all in your lap without the risk of it tipping right over. Now, the other one that I do recommend would be the Cube Mix Plus or the i7 Book. Now, the Mix Plus has the same exact CPU, but it runs at 1866 megahertz and supports a Wacom stylus, which is a lot better because it has pressure levels and overall a really good stylus experience on that particular model. Thanks a lot for watching this review, and I do hope to catch you back in the channel soon. Bye for now.